The poet Joseph Brodsky once said, "There are only two grandiose shows in the world, water and clouds." It's difficult to argue with nature's beauty, but let's hope our show is also not bad looking. Anyway, Aziza is having fun. In the last episode, we completed the Kyrgyz section of our route. We visited the ancient Buranu Tower, saw outdoor enthusiasts in Suosamir and paid a visit to Manas Batyr and his mausoleum. At the moment, we're already now in native land in Taraz. Not everything turns out quickly and easily, but we do not give up. In one famous film, one of the main characters said, "Dzhambul, it's warm there, my house is there, my mother is there." The feeling of returning to one's homeland is incomparable with anything. Taraz, the first Kazakh city located on the border with Kyrgyzstan, welcomed us with a gentle sun and kind people. The first information about the city of Taraz preserved till our time is in the Chinese sources dated back to the middle of the 1st century BC. The Buddhist monk Xuanzang, passing through Taraz in 485, noted that the city is quite large and full of merchants from different countries. Even back then, when caravans walked along the Silk Road, the services of 7 to 8 interpreters were needed in ancient Taraz in order to find out what a person wants to buy. And just then, while taking with them wonderful goods and sometimes beautiful women as wives, merchants talked about the riches of Taraz. And Taraz was indeed incredibly rich. Tolos, Taraz, Yany, Auliye-Ata, Mirzoyan, Dzhambul and again Taraz. The city is a witness of different eras, conquerors and states. Here every stone might be a piece of antiquity. Interesting, but do the locals know how old Taraz is? Let's ask. Can you tell me how old is Taraz? 2,000 years. Are you sure? In 2005 it was 2,000 years old. No, in 2001. Do you know how old is Taraz? Taraz is 2018 years old. It is about 2,000 years old. Sorry, we're in a hurry to work. Probably 100 years old. I don't know, sister. Taraz? 550 years old. Taraz is 19 years old. 19? But now there is a 2,000-year-old history, which means 2,000 years. Thanks. More than 2,000 years. Do you know exactly? I think this is the oldest city. Ancient city. Here it is, a vibrant city. Life is in full swing, everyone is in a hurry somewhere. But it's wonderful that for the most part Taraz residents know in what kind of city they were lucky to live. Let's also get to know Taraz better. What is modern Taraz proud of? It is a home to one of the best boxing schools in the country. Such famous athletes as Sarik Konakbayev, Bakhtiar Atayev, Yamakan Ibrahimov began their journey in Taraz. If you want to hold a family celebration in a lavish but inexpensive way, then you need to come to Taraz. By the number of restaurants, Taraz is not inferior to the capital of the Kazakh celebratory party industry, Shymkent. Fashionistas should also visit the ancient city. Taraz Shoe Factory produces high-quality domestic shoes. 3 reasons to spend a weekend in Taraz: sports, weddings and new clothes. Not a bad combination, but let's talk about ancient Taraz in more detail. There is a unique time machine in Taraz that instantly takes a person of the 21st century to the heyday of the Great Silk Road. Everyone can use it, and we decided to try it too. If in 2002 Taraz celebrated its 2000th anniversary, then it means that now it is 2017 years old. We are now in the historical and cultural center, ancient Taraz. The archaeological park, Ancient Taraz, was opened during the 550th anniversary of the Kazakh Khanate. The complex is located on the area of 20 hectares, previously owned by the Central Market. The unique project is included in the list of 100 sacred places of Kazakhstan and intends to enter the UNESCO World Heritage List. I want our ancient city standing on the Silk Road to be famous for its hospitality, famous for its historical sites. There are 1,300 historical sites in Dzhambul region. 5 are included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. We need to share this fact, and not only that, we must show it, and the tourist industry must work hard in order to receive more and more guests. But guests come to the lands of Taraz not always with good intentions. For such cases, our ancestors came up with a great solution. You know, scientists believe that here in Taraz there is an underground passage. When the Mongols attacked, Kazakhs passed through it, burned the city and left. But so far no one has found it. It turns out that even the location of the palace was designed in a way that it wasn't necessary to dig a long underground tunnel.
И вот часто вот этот арк или цитадель.
And often this arch or citadel was not in the middle of the Shakristan, but somewhere right against the wall of the Shakristan. Because many rulers were afraid not only of the external enemy, but also of the internal enemy. And many of them had underground exits from their palace if they needed to escape.
Подземные выходы, чтобы бежать.
The old-timers of the city said that back in their childhood they went down into a huge cave and testified that a rider with a spear could pass through the underground passage. In fact, this underground route has not yet been explored, but hopes to find it still remain. Archaeological excavations in Taraz began in 2011 and still continue. They say that in 2015 they found 97 golden and silver pieces of jewelry. I wonder where I need to look. I also want to find some earrings for myself, so others can ask me later, where did you find these earrings? And I will say, in Taraz, my friends. But Taraz was famous not only for its jewelry. Silk from here was not inferior in quality to Chinese brocade and Byzantine purple. Excavations demonstrate that forging and casting on the shores of Talas were at the highest level. Taraz reached its peak in the 10th, 12th centuries when it became known as the capital of the state of the Karakhanids. Its former greatness is confirmed by an extensive network of water pipes made of clay, the remains of architectural structures, old fortress, mosque, madrasas, foundations of residential buildings, as well as sidewalks and cobbled streets. The museum Ancient Taraz presents only those artifacts that were found here. Its collection includes 2,800 exhibits. If you will ever visit the museum, you should definitely look at the wonderful ceramics of the pre-Mongol period and later times of the Kazakh Khanate, bronze and iron household items, pieces of jewelry and dishes. The name of the dish with the image of a girl has an interesting story. The fact is that Kazakhstan's archaeological items have a very small number of anthropomorphic images, meaning portrait items. While there are items with images of all kinds of animals, we are not surprised by the images of plants, letter ornaments and so on. But we have very few images of people, very few. And when a dish was found in a well-preserved state where an oriental beauty was depicted, immediately she was named Aisha Bibi. And without any resistance, this version was accepted by everyone from journalists to the regional authorities. Well, in general, this name has taken hold of this dish. Let there be more anthropomorphic images in Taraz. We take photos in an exotic location, use the hashtag across Central Asia and wait for the prizes. This photo is spontaneous, but if Aziza went on an expedition as a blogger, careful preparation would have preceded the photo. Auliye-Ata told a little about the photographer's professional insights, what to wear to get stylish photos. I always think a little about my image so that it matches in colors. In general, such universal, basic things such as white dresses, simple sundresses are good to have. I have a sundress. I bought it for 500 tenge. And it looks great even among the greenery, at the Charin Canyon, in the middle of the lake. Black basic outfits are always good too. They look cool on the singing dune among the sand. With a women's outfit, it's clear, beautiful clothes, and that would be more than enough. And what to do with men's photos? Maxim Zolotukhin knows which item will ennoble any man. From each trip, The photographer brings not the souvenirs and refrigerator magnets, but the props for filming. From Gothic Prague, I brought myself a skull. A skull is such a thing that becomes useful when you absolutely do not know how and what to shoot, especially if it comes to men. You just give a man a skull for him to hold it in his hand. The man immediately becomes enigmatic. At this moment, the portrait will be successful anyway. Well, of course, this skull is made of plastic. It is not real, although there are plenty of real ones. There are whole cathedrals made of bones, but why do we need a real one? We bought a regular plastic skull. It is very similar. A little bit of photographic wisdom. We will use this knowledge in our travels. And now it's time to return to the city on Talas River. The city was an important transit point during the Great Silk Road. The origins of the northern branch of the Silk Road were in Al-Malik. Then the route passed through Turpan, crossed the Tian Shan and the Pamir, rushing to the city of Yassi and ending along the Sirdarya River. Our expedition goes along the route of the Great Silk Road, and they say that Taraz was a very important point at the intersection of caravan roads. And there is even a belief that Taraz is much older than the Great Silk Road. The historical literature cites the fact that in 46 BC the leader of the northern Huns, Jibek, was invited by the Kangu to form an alliance against the Usuns. Jibek established a fortress on the Talas River, which was later burnt to the ground. Scientists are inclined to believe that the Jibek fortress was the forerunner of Taraz, but reliable facts confirming this have not yet been found. But excavations at the site of the ancient settlement continue, and if the hypothesis is confirmed, the city will outstrip even the Silk Road in age. To share one's own experience of interacting with the Silk Road routes has become a good tradition in our program. In 2017, photographer Maxim Zolotukin visited the starting point of the Silk Road, where caravans formed in China. Living here, he studied the local part of the road and then discovered the endpoints of the Jade Road in Europe. Here he is, a modern man who has overcome the Silk Road from start to finish. Another thing is when you understand how many months it took people to go back and forth, right? This, of course, was a great feat, taking into account natural phenomena, wars, robbers on the road, taking into account illnesses. In a sense, these people risking their lives moved the progress, while at the same time making a fortune for themselves. Aziza and Taraz also mutually enriched themselves, only spiritually. The host gave the city her seething energy, and Taraz gave Aziza the spirit of antiquity. When I stand here, I close my eyes and think about how this place was filled with aromas of zira, saffron and tandoor bread. I guess I need to read a little more about ancient Taraz, preferably somewhere in a local restaurant. Aziza went to look for a restaurant, and we went further to study Taraz and came across an ancient caravanserai right in the vicinity of the modern city. From this point of view, TORTKUL, as you said, is located right in the center of the city today. I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but I think it's the only museum like caravanserai that you can see in our city. Initially, there was a mound at this place. In 2008, archaeologists began excavations and discovered the remains of a building that used to be a caravanserai with a hotel, saunas and infrastructure that accompanied the ancient caravanserais. According to the coins found here, the building dated to the 6th, 7th centuries AD. The caravanserai spread over the area of 80 square meters. In 2010, the object was reconstructed, 5-meter walls were erected, and the interior was recreated as well. TORTKUL has been welcoming tourists since 2014. First of all, ceramic pipes were already installed back then. As we say today, oh, we have warm floors. But these warm floors were used in Kazakhstan 1,000 years ago. There were warm walls, warm floors. On these sufas, meaning the earthen ramparts, they laid the corpses. It was warm to rest on them. There was a place where travelers could take a bath, of course. People had to clean up themselves. They had a place to have a tasty meal, a place where they could relax. Their horses also needed a checkup. They required to be shod up, and so on. There were specially assigned corners for smiths' shops. Of course, there was also a big market. An interesting ethno-project, Kone Taraz Shebeleri, Artisans of Ancient Taraz, was held this year on the basis of TORTKUL. It gathered guests from 8 countries. Yurts and Alti-Bakan swings were installed on the territory of the Caravanserai. Tourists were able to watch how the Kazakh national dishes, such as kut, baosaks, kumiz, zhent are cooked. They got acquainted with the art of bakut tamers, played national games. We have already seen something similar in Kyrgyzstan using the example of the Bokonbaeva Aul. We are similar, and this can become a real platform for our partnership in the field of tourism. Today, people may not be interested in 5-star hotels. Let them plunge into everyday life, customs, traditions of Kazakh, Kyrgyz and Uzbek people. After all, it was back then, while traveling down the Silk Road, people noted that ancient Taraz was the most beautiful one. It was here that TORTKUL, a caravanserais, arose, and from here civilization started. Gold and silver coins were minted. It is in our power now to unite our efforts and make tourism of the 3 countries really flourish. Tourists will be the ones who benefit the most from it, as they will see the most beautiful sights. In the city of merchants, you cannot just pass by the TEKTURMAS mausoleum. The people believe that the holy Sultan Mahmud Khan is buried here. Once upon a time, there was a burnt brick mausoleum apparently built during the spread of Islam on this territory. The building of the 14th century was destroyed in 1935. In the early 2000s, the mausoleum was restored according to the old surviving photograph of the late 19th century. Nearby, there is another mausoleum erected on the grave of the legendary associate of Abulai Khan, Mambet Batir. There is a belief it is possible to approach the grave of Saint Sultan Mahmud Khan only after passing the Batir mausoleum. It serves as a kind of protection to the saint. Many cannot pass this line, feeling involuntary weakness. Today, TEKTURMAS has become a pilgrimage center. Many believers passing by consider it their duty to visit this holy place. The vicinity of Taraz is just a treasure box of ancient settlements. If you drive 40 kilometers from the city, you will find yourself in the mysterious Auliye-Ata settlement. Auliye-Ata had a difficult fate. In Soviet times, due to indifference and lack of understanding of its true value, the monument suffered significant damage. Thus, the stone blocks with ornaments, invaluable for science, were irretrievably lost. No one could understand what did the stone ruins represent. Parts of them you could feel underground, parts on the surface. The Turkestan-Siberian railway is just nearby. Then it turned out that many Auliye-Ata stones were used for the railway construction. They simply used it. No one knew at the time that these stones were unique, that this territory would someday become a place of pilgrimage for pilgrims, esotericists and just tourists. As the study progressed, the assumptions that Auliye-Ata was a Brahmin temple and Nestorian monastery, a caravanserai and a palace fortress were constantly advanced and refuted. So far, the version that has been proposed by Karl Baipakov and a number of other archaeologists has been generally accepted. It goes like this. It is believed that this is a monument of the 8th century and was allegedly built by the Arab commander Qutayb ibn Muslim. This monument, a palace or a city, it is often called differently. In short, this building turned out to be unfinished, and there is even a version on why it turned out to be unfinished. This object is supposedly a symbol of his arbitrariness. The fact that he demonstrated independent actions from the official politics of the Caliphate, the central administration, led to the fact that he was called and killed. But the famous architect holds a different point of view on this issue. Almas suggests that Auliye-Ata is the creation of the Samanids, dated to the first half of the 10th century, the period when Taraz was captured by them. It is likely that Auliye-Ata was conceived as a large caravanserai, a mini-city with all the associated facilities. It is a rather complicated, interesting object. The layout of this very object speaks of this. There is a palace type of building, the mosque is clearly marked there, as well as places where animals were kept in warehouses. That's what it is. One of the arguments in favor of the hypothesis of a caravanserai is the presence of premises of a certain form. We also noticed them. This is the place where shopping caravans usually rested, where the drovers and the traders themselves had a rest, where their pack animals rested, where they were fed, where they spent the night, because it was hard to move at night. These were the premises where travelers themselves spent the night. After all, there are narrow premises. They are clearly visible. These long, narrow rooms existed in all caravanserais on trade routes. These were the warehouses where bags were stored. While scientists break their spears to prove this or that version of the origin of Auliye-Ata, esotericists do not need proof. They feel the aura of this place. We met a group of people who like to talk about the connection of red stones with space. They climbed over the stones, raised their hands to the sky, someone even lay on the ground comfortably. Our crew asked tourists what was the purpose of their visit to Auliye-Ata. There is a legend that anyone who arrives here must find their stone and touch it. And if there is a slight tingling, then it has affected you. And it cures many chronic diseases. It might heal some female diseases related to gynecology and other diseases as well. The procedure for communication with higher powers will not take place if the stone is chosen incorrectly. We asked Bakejan why he chose this particular place. Well, I chose this stone because, first of all, I liked it, among many other stones, and it's comfortable to sit on it, and I am getting energy from it. I'm charging, so to speak. Tour guide Myra Rakimbekova shared a supernatural story that happened to one of her students during an overnight stay in Auliye-Ata. The next morning after we came here, one of these students told me that they took a walk at night. You know, young people, they enjoy it. The scarier the better. In addition to that, there was no light at that time. That young man said, you can believe me or not, but when we walked at night, we saw an old man, as Kazakhs called him Iye. In general, it is a unique territory. You get a feeling, you know. Well, it is hard to describe in words. It's really just a feeling that you touch something. Something I cannot explain with words. If you see money in Auliye-Ata, do not try to pick it up. There is a tradition that when you make a wish, you leave coins to make this wish come true. Wow, the amount of useful information per unit of time goes through the roof. The episode about Taraz turned out to be informative, and what else should be expected from a city with a 2,000-year history? Aziza thoroughly studied the ancient Taraz open-air museum in search of a jewelry treasure, talked with the city residents, and mentally traveled to ancient Taraz from the background of the observation tower. We were lucky to see the only museum-like caravanserai in Kazakhstan and touched the mysterious red stones of Auliye-Ata. Enough events for today. We will see you in the next episode.